Okay, thank you. Now the minister. How much time you want?
About 40 minutes.
40 minutes.
No? Because I think the debate has been going on for put together about
5.5 hours.
7 hours,
5.5 hours.
5.5 today, and the previous debate. Was
Okay,
also.
okay.
Anyhow, I'll try to be brief as possible. Mr. Chairman, sir, I must thank the House for the very remarkable fashion in which this debate has been conducted. Most of the speeches made here and the addresses and the issues raised were of remarkable degree commendable, and I will try to meet those points. But before I come to those issues, I must say that I must spell out the framework of the postulates on which we are making our foreign policy. Because I think it is not only important that I respond to the various points that have been raised by my honorable friends, but I also must say how we are shaping the foreign policy and why. The foreign policy of India in the contemporary world, which is a post-Cold War world, has to respond to various new situations. But also at the same time, we have to keep in mind the fact that no foreign policy, be it today or was it yesterday or be it tomorrow, can ever be divorced from the history of it and from the basic compulsions on which foreign policy was built. Early, now we are 50 years old republic, and 50 years back when Indian foreign policy was being structured, also it was being structured on some basis. I think the unique sense of Indian foreign policy, that Indian freedom struggle when it was going on, I think unlike many other countries, it was during the freedom struggle itself that India's foreign policy was visualized. We remember when there was a war in China, what we did, when there was a civil war in Spain, what we did, or when there was an anti-colonial struggle going on anywhere in the world, how our leaders responded to it. To begin with, how did Gandhiji respond to Africa? Therefore, this was the basis on which the foreign policy was being perceived when India became free. When India became free, we knew two things, and that was that the struggle, freedom struggle, had not only spelt out the future of India, but also it had has a vision, it has a place, and it had visualized how India will cope with the coming situations. India was at that time confronted with the reality of bloc war. Cold War was going on. And today we might talk of anything of non-alignment. One thing which Nehru's vision call it the legacy of freedom struggle. One thing was certain, and that is that no country can consider itself free till its foreign policy is free, until its foreign policy is liberated from any commitments to one bloc or the other. It was a time, and I want to remind you, sir, when originally India started talking about freedom, non-aligned word came much later, that we are not going to be part of any bloc. Both the blocs condemned us. Stalin called Nehru the running dog of imperialism. And what Dulles said about India is to be read in the books. It was in that context, therefore, when Nehru, as the first foreign minister of India, was saying that we do not want to join any bloc. In a way, he was not talking only of blocs. He was talking in the context of India being free to decide its choice. Non-alignment has only one word, and that is freedom of choice. Judge your own national interest and then decide what you want to do. He did not want either Moscow or Washington to decide his foreign policy. And today we might say this thing that is good or bad, but basic point is that a free India and a republic could not have any other foreign policy, even if it has to be relived again, which would be anything different than this. I think this challenge, which was a challenge also, the mighty ones didn't like it, but gradually as the decolonization triggered off and country after country became free, many countries decided that there is a commonality of viewpoint. It was nothing out of forming a bloc. Nehru did not go around asking people to join the non-aligned movement. It was basically because it was visualized and realized that after all, when you get out of the yoke of colonialism, You have to think in terms of your foreign policy, what type of relationships you would have. Large number of countries, more than 100 at that time, to begin with there were 3 or 4. One by one it was realized that if you are under the thumb of one bloc or the other, your freedom is to that extent compromised. And that is why the non-aligned movement got built. Non-aligned movement, Nehru time and again said, was not neutrality. It was not, repeatedly he told us, and if we want to forget it, it is for us to decide. America did criticize Nehru by saying that you are not neutral. Repeatedly he said we are not neutral. We cannot be neutral where our national interests are concerned. And that continues to be our perception. That continues to be our vision. That wherever our national interests are concerned, we shall not be neutral. It is also a fact that wherever our national interests are concerned and involved, we will always have freedom of choice. We will decide, we will have autonomy of choice. We will decide what suits us, what does not suit us. Naturally, any government sitting on these benches, be it this one or the past one or the future one, has to be responsible to this House. This House must decide what type of expression of freedom it wants to have. Experience has also shown that after the end of Cold War, and I'm not going to take you back to the Cold War era, but I think let us talk of last 5 years since the Cold War has ended. What is the picture emerging? The picture has emerged that Cold War has ended, that there was a rivalry between the blocs which has ended, but suddenly we find the pendulum has moved in one direction. Now I'm not going to name any country, but you also know, and I think I don't have to name, that there are designs of hegemony. Hegemonic designs are there all the time, be they in the economy, be they in politics, or be they in foreign policy. I think there are countries which would like to see the world under their own thumb. Well, certain associations have been also formed. Some are calling themselves G7. There's another one called P5. They may have shade of differences amongst themselves. But so far as hegemony of the third world is concerned, it is a commonly spelt objective. And that is why when we talk in terms of our own future, or when we talk in terms of what shall we do, we have to think in terms of whether it is a challenge to India's freedom or not, and freedom of choice particularly. Freedom does not mean this thing that gunboat diplomacy is going to take place. But also at the same time, it is important for us to keep in mind all the time that these situations that on the economic sphere you are confronted with the G7, on the nuclear issue you are confronted with the P5, how do you work out your policy? How do you respond to those situations? Well, I think the main point therefore is one thing which is common sense is response would anybody would be try to unify those who agree with you. They may not agree wholly with you. They may not come all the time with you. They may not stand with you with every issue, but try to find the highest common factor. And I think the challenge before the NAM today is to discover the HCF, the highest common factor. Sometimes we are criticized that you stood for an election and so didn't vote for you. It is not a block. It is not something, even in the past, even in Nehru's time, non-aligned never voted as a block many times. But also basically we were trying to find all the time, and that quest continues, and that quest is the discovery of highest common factor. Which are the issues on which we can agree? Which are the issues where we can collectively resist? Sometimes we succeed, sometimes we don't, because the world is so changing, and that is why we continue to see the situation. Now we are also seeing at the same time a strange type of commonality of interest. The attitude of nuclear powers towards the non-nuclear powers. You are seeing it. You are seeing it for yourself that economic powers, as I said, G7, what do they press? We talk about WTO sometimes. We talk about, yesterday we talked about the Uruguay round. And I had the privilege of being the chairman of the committee which examined the Uruguay report and gave you a report. We tried to examine all those issues which were confronted today. And I think it will be worthwhile to, and it is without any egoistic dimension on my part, it will be worthwhile for you to kindly go to that report. What is happening new which we did not spell out? We spelled it out. And yet on the balance we thought that joining the WTO will be advantageous, but we must safeguard our interests. Sometimes we succeed, sometimes we don't. And I think you should not judge only from the results. We said at that time, and even she said today, I'm talking now of nuclear, NPT or CTBT, we said that we are not signing them because they're charades. They are not reality. They are not truth. Because all those who talked in those terms, it's of the CTBT or NPT, but who broke the agreements? After signing the NPT, who did the tests? Not those who did not sign, not we. France signed it, broke it. China signed it, broke it. And even today when the CTBT has been spelled out, certain reservations have been kept. That particular type of blow they will not do, but the certain type of test they will keep on doing. That was our objection. We were saying make it more honest. We were also saying if you want to have the control, please for God's sake, bring all those factors into play which are going to cover it up. They did not agree. But the main point also was that when we kept on saying it, well, we came before the House, and we must say that fortunately this House and the other House understood the historical duty it had to perform. And I think it's a matter of pride for me, and a matter of pride of all of us, that when such a challenge was posed, the nation stood like one. It was not this side or that side or this side, everybody. We all felt that India's freedom was in question and we shall keep our prestige up. We knew the punishments that can come. But everybody in the House told me, don't care. Don't worry about the punishment. Therefore, stand up. We stood up. And I'm glad that we have stood up. But may I say this thing, that CTBT signing, not signing, did not end in that month of September. There is still 3 years left. Then it will be said again and again that if you don't sign, some such thing will happen. First punishment came when we got defeated in the Security Council. And my friends even today have said, great disaster, great. What did we feel? Did we think that India would be rewarded for not signing the CTBT? Was it ever perceived that we can abstain and we can also defy, and yet you will push the Security Council? I never thought so. On 26th August, sir, if you'll permit me, speaking in other House, I clearly spelled it out. I said I do not see the possibility of India being elected. It was not. I will not take more time because we are talk about. I had also said at that time, and I again on record, I had said the type of media propaganda which will go against you. Yet the two houses said stand up, and we stood up. And now it is very strange for me to hear sometimes. Now talk is also going on that about the permanent seat. I can assure you, you will not get permanent seat. I am being very frank with you. This House must know frankly, who is going to decide about the permanent seat? Not by common vote, not by the vote of Africa and Asia. Basically the powers are centralized somewhere, and they are not going to let you sit in the Security Council and yet defy them. There is one option available if this House wishes. There are 3 years, sir, already available to us when we can sign. Permit me to sign and you will get a permanent seat. And I think that I can promise you. If you are not willing to do that, then please don't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. There is no free lunch, as they call it in America. For every defiance you have to pay a price. And all those nations which want to stand on their feet must learn how to stand and defy. Defiance is an essential price or essential methodology for asserting your freedom. If you don't want to assert it, naturally it is for you to decide. But if you decide to defy and stand up on your own, then please don't ask for the prizes, don't ask for the garlands, don't ask for the seats. It is bound to happen. And if you are not going to do that, then I think it is something very strange which I would not like to say. Every attitude, every policy, every nation, every individual who is self-respecting has to pay a price. And that price India shall pay. A friend may ask that why was Australia defeated? Australia was competing against Portugal. Both had signed the CTBT. So therefore both were, there is a choice of the European powers. Europeans wanted a fellow European. Europeans had more votes than those who could collect around Australia. But both were signatories of CTBT. So it was not as if a signatory was defeated against those who did not sign. So therefore it is not a question why did they get loose. The tragedy basically is on...
Signed the CTBT, we would have won the seat.
Pardon me?
is the impression being given that had we signed the CTBT, we would have won the seat in the Security
impression that I
Council?
am giving you, and I
There's no
repeat,
evidence to
the
suggest
impression
that.
I am giving you, and I'm repeating what I'm saying. If you are willing to compromise, if you are willing
Nobody,
to just
no,
a minute,
the way
just a
you
minute.
saying
ask a
that,
question, let me reply.
no question of compromise, but specifically you are saying that had we signed on the CTBT,
Yes.
we would have got a seat in the Security Council.
Yes, I'm saying
There
that.
is no evidence to suggest
That is
that
for
you
you
would
to
have
decide,
got that.
but that is for you.
There is no evidence whatsoever to suggest that a gap of 100 votes could have been made by your signing the CTBT.
Well, this is for your judgment, but I can tell you this thing, that those who understand the world
we
of
don't
nations
buy that.
know this thing. Anyhow,
We don't buy that.
all right. If you think that we have been defeated by not signing, and we would have been defeated even by signing.
As you very well recall, I was the one who initiated this debate, and I am with you, you are with me on this. But then to go back and say that had we signed it, we would have
I
been a
am not
member
saying that.
of
I am
this
saying
thing,
that
is showing two things. A, that you are sorry for what you have done. You have made a statement that had we signed it, we may have got a seat. Are you sorry for what you have done?
No, kindly understand me. No, don't misinterpret.
Are we sorry
Let
for
me
what
say
we
so.
have done?
Here to me now, sit down, let me see so. Don't misunderstand me and don't misquote me, please. I am saying, and I repeat, that we have paid the price of defiance and we are proud in it. We are proud that we have stood up. We are proud that India stood with great deal of dignity and was not deterred either by threats or by daunts or by any prizes or by any temptation. No. And I don't think India ever shall, and India ever should. I think that is the legacy of India. And this is the basic thing that I want to say. If your party is a different point of view, it is a different thing. Therefore, what I say is
no difference in that. But
Precious,
there is a
let me now
difference in
repeat, please,
saying that had we
I will
signed
not
it
disrupt
and
you
we are
once.
feeling sorry for it.
Pressures in the modern world are never direct. Pressures in the modern world are never brazen. Gunboat diplomacy days are gone. Pressures are always by implications. Pressures are always by indirect methods. And that is what is called lobbies. Lobbies are built for that purpose. And lobbies have their own method of function. And I think all of us who are interested in foreign affairs must understand the operational skills of the lobbies. I had in my address to the Rajya Sabha on 26th of August said, the media will try to demoralize us. That has happened. And unfortunately, that is the real tragedy, that our morale is being sapped on this issue as if by losing a seat, we have lost the world. We have not. After all, in the past also it happened. We were once defeated by no other country than Pakistan in 1975. There was an issue at that time also. With that issue we may not agree, but the issue was there. Main point basically is that whenever you have something to do, this situation will happen. 3 years are still there. President Clinton is on record having said that India will come round in these 3 years. There is a challenge to you. And if you go on sapping your morale, if you go on being victim of this propaganda that seat mattered a great deal, then this type of projection will continue to face you, that India will come round. Will India come round? Does India want to come round? Is it in India's interest to come round? Is it consistent with our self-respect to come round? Is it consistent with our legacy to come round? Then if it is not, then let us make very clear that we need not lament all the time and go on chest beating that we have been defeated and something great has happened or some disaster has taken place. The carrots, the punishments, the rods, these are all parts of the today situation. A defeat is also a methodology of work, well-orchestrated pressure. You defeat once, you defeat second time, you defeat third time, and sometimes the pressure works. Therefore, I think when, I'm sorry, I'm talking to a thin house, but I wish my voice is heard on this issue. Because for last 1 month, a type of propaganda that has gone on all through media. Disaster has taken place, humiliation has taken place. Nothing like this has happened. But we forget another dimension of it. When in September, And my friend Mr. Swell was very eloquent on that, who stood with us. And he was denigrating those who stood with us in September. Well, he may have his own views about them. But they stood up all the same, despite the pressure. And therefore, those were three countries stood up in September. By the time this situation of Security Council came in, we were 40. How did that happen? After all, increasingly it is being realized that whether it is issue of CTBT, that pressures have to be resisted by somebody. And if we have resisted, there is a great deal of appreciation for this. When we became 40, it's very interesting also to keep a note of the fact that out of the 5 nuclear powers, 3 voted with us. Why did they vote with us? Each one of them had their own compulsion. China had its own reasons. Russia had its own reasons. France had its own reasons. Yet you find a crack developing. Shall we give up and not help in widening the crack? I think these are the issues. Therefore, when we talk in terms of post-Cold War, I leave the CTBT here. I'm glad that some of my friends had pointed out that in the post-Cold War era, it is a regional cooperation that is most important. I agree with that, totally agree with that. Because I think there's no country in the world which is not now concentrated on regional cooperation. Europe is talking of Europeans. America is talking in terms of Mexico and Canada. Latin Americans have their own. Africans have their own. And very fortunately, we are also concentrating a great deal on that. In the regional cooperation, our concept is not confined only to the South Asia. We are looking wider. And my friends will recall that this, in today's context, the neighborhood does not mean only regional, only geographical proximity. It means interest proximity also. Interests sometimes are not 100% similar. But again, highest common factor. We are today, very good achievement by the previous government, we are today the dialogue partners of the ASEAN. Some friends had said that some years back we were offered and we did not join. Yes, we did not join at that time, because those were the compulsions of Cold War itself. Each one country had one commitment, the other a Cold War. In the post-Cold War era, our joining as a full dialogue partner of ASEAN is of benefit to us. We are also a member of the ARF. Sometimes it is questioned, and I want to share with you, sir, sometimes it is said that, my God, you wanted to join such and such an organization, they did not let you join. I was in Jakarta in July when France and Britain wanted to join ARF, their application was rejected. Does this mean that they were isolated? Does it mean that they have ceased to be power? Basic point is that every effort is made for pursuing certain things, and you go on doing it, and sometimes you succeed, sometimes you don't. We are also widening the sweep of our antenna. We have not only worked out very good relationship with the ASEAN, we are now working a great deal on the Indian Ocean Rim 14 countries, extending from Australia, coming up to ASEAN. In March, the ministers will be meeting for third time in Mauritius, and I am hoping that this year itself there will be a meeting of the summit level in Oman. This is another area which we are trying to expand. There are about 10 countries which are wanting to join Indian Ocean Rim. We have not yet taken view on that. I don't know what will happen when we meet in Mauritius and what type of attitude will be taken. The other dimension of India is, and rightly pointed out by some of my friends, is Central Asia. With Central Asia, we have age-old relations. And if I sit down here to recall the history, then I can go on covering the centuries after centuries of the past, when we had good relations with them, Buddhism, the Kushans, the Mughals and whatnot. And that relationship, fortunately for us, is very abiding. Even in the days of the Soviet Union, when I had the privilege of working there as ambassador, and I had the extensive travel in these regions, we found a great deal of affinity, cultural, linguistic, historical, and emotional, with the country of India with them. That is still abiding. And we are trying now to give it a new orientation. It so happens, Mr. Chairman, sir, that these countries are now very petroleum rich. Gas is mostly in this region. Only a week back or 10 days back, in the early part of this month, there was a conference in Goa of the World Petroleum Ministers. I was deputed by the Prime Minister to be there. What did you discover there? It was projected that in the coming century, 40% of the energy will be consumed by Asia. And out of 40%, more than half will be consumed by China and India together. Now where do we get that? Naturally, the eyes are turning towards Central Asia. And that is why increasingly you hear the talk about the pipelines coming. Somebody talks in terms of pipeline via Afghanistan. Somebody talks about pipeline from Iran under the sea or over the sea or whatever. But the politics for next few years is going to the politics of gas pipe. And that is where India's relationship with these countries will matter. We have, to an extent, succeeded recently in restructuring our relations with Iran. Now you know this thing that in the previous situation, we had to send our goods to Central Asia via Odessa when Soviet Union was there. That is a very circuitous route. Now a railway line is almost completed through Iran up to Turkmenistan, and then it gets through to the entire Central Asia. That facilitates our trade and also our relations. Iran has also undergone a major change. In 1990, I recall, when I was minister here earlier, I was to go to Iran for an official visit. 1 week before my visit, the visit was officially cancelled by Iran on the plea that they were in sympathy with the sufferance of the Muslims in Kashmir. Same Iran today, same Mr. Valaiti flew in here last month for 2 hours to invite India to participate in the conference in Iran. Despite the fact that Pakistan minister went there, told them that if India is invited, we will not come. They did not care. India is there. And India was there, then India was present for the Afghanistan conference in New York, and a third, I think, will be held somewhere in Central Asia soon, where India will also be present, because third has been cancelled again, which was to be held in Peshawar. And there also Pakistan said, if India is invited, then you can't hold the conference in Pakistan. This is a new orientation of Indian foreign policy that we are giving towards this. We are a factor in Afghanistan situation. We do not want to interfere in Afghanistan. We do not want to have any arms race in Afghanistan. We want a peaceful Afghanistan, because a peaceful Afghanistan which should not be intervened from outside. The Taliban's are intervention from outside. We have our vested interest in peace there, because once the peace is there, then we have those gas lines coming up, and also this area doesn't get destabilized. We are strongly averse to growth of fundamentalism so much close to our neighborhood. And that is what we are saying. And that is one of the main reasons why we continue to recognize Rabbani regime. We have good relations with Dostan. We have good relations with Masood. And this is a type of new Afghan policy that we have sorted out and we are pursuing. We are also have now worked out a new situation, and that is about after the Tehran conference, and that is that we will continue the situation where our friendships with this area can be strengthened. But central point of Indian foreign policy is the SAARC, our neighborhood. And I'm glad to say that from tomorrow we are going to have a conference here of the SAARC foreign ministers. All of them are coming. It happens this year that India is chairman of the SAARC. I hope all of you, at least most of you, will come to the inaugural at least to see the conference itself. It's a good thing for us, good feeling for us, because SAARC is undergoing a change. Bangladesh has been a remarkable good achievement of India. I'm not saying it is not my achievement. It is not government's achievement. It is a treaty of India and Bangladesh. We must look at the whole thing in that wider concept. And I think that really gives us a big boost for this conference. We have very good relations with Nepal. We have already agreed to give them access through Bangladesh, through India. We have agreed, Mahakali Treaty has been finalized. We hope work will begin very soon. Bangladesh, my statement has already been made. I need not repeat here what we've agreed. But I think it has given a new feeling of friendship both in Bangladesh and us. And I know this thing, that this treaty will be a building stone or a arc stone for our new friendships and cooperation. We have very good relationship with Bhutan. A question has been asked here whether the Sankosh river will be tamed or not. Well, if I may use that word, inshallah, we'll probably try to do this. The initial signals from Bhutan are good. We have still to negotiate with them, and I think I'll find soon a time to go there and talk to them. Also, at the same time, when I was talking about NAM, in April 3rd and 4th, the NAM foreign ministers, 118 of them will be assembling in India. This again is the centrality of Indian foreign policy. You may condemn NAM if you like to. You may run away from it if you find to. But all those friends who are against NAM, I ask them one question as simple is, what is the alternative policy they suggest? What shall we do if we do not want to stay with those who are like us? If we do not want to stay with those who have gone through the colonial era themselves? If we do not want to stay with those who are also against hegemonism of some powers, then who do we want to stay with? Do we want to stay with hegemons? Do we want to the doorsteps of those who want to exploit us, whose interests are known to us, are not in our favor? And therefore, in that context again, the question arises, if they are coming here in April, to visualize the role of NAM in next century. And that is where we in April, India will again come in the central point to discuss this. We will discuss that at length. Question can also be asked, they did not vote for you. Yes, they did not. Is that the only test? As I said earlier in part of this, has it ever happened in the last 50 years that NAM collectively voted on one side? That is why Nehru was all the time saying, we are not a bloc, we are a movement. And that is the difference between a bloc and a movement. That your freedom of choice sometimes voluntarily, sometimes non-voluntarily, continuously. We have also must say at the same time that not only this autonomy of choice and freedom of action is a central point of the NAM, this is something on which alone a world strength can be expressed. And that is how we are trying to do. Recently, we had the honor of receiving the Deputy President of South Africa here. The NAM ministers will meet here in April, and NAM summit is likely to be held in South Africa towards the end of this year. Some friends have talked about the visit of Chinese president. We are not euphoric about it. We have not gone down to say to the city to say this thing that everything fine has been done. No, it has not been. That is why you would have seen that we have not highlighted to the extent sometimes some friends would have liked us to. We are now at that stage when we have only signed a confidence building measure. Issue of border has not been sorted out as yet. There are some issues on which we have differences of opinion. But also at the same time, we have a feeling that now through this confidence building measures, in 1993 when Narasimha Rao ji went there, he had spelled out tranquility about it. We have taken it one step further now. It is not something new. It is only detailed spelling of that, where the ultimately line of actual control is not border. And it has been said in the agreement itself that is without prejudice to our claims and does not sort out the claims regarding our boundary, regarding our area. Our claims regarding our territory are there, and they will be there, and unless we are satisfactorily satisfied. Therefore, any other suggestion that is made in that context must not be misunderstood. But one thing is very interesting for me to point out, and you all have read it. What did President Jiang tell Islamabad? Why did he tell them that about Kashmir they must now talk bilaterally? Why did he tell them that there is a new type of model which has been worked out in the Sino-Indian relationships? What is Sino-Indian model? That contentious issues remain, yet we are trying to work out some cooperations in various areas. If I may say so without any disrespect to you, sir, or to anybody, 2 years ago I had the privilege of going to Pakistan on a private visit. Madam Benazir Bhutto was in office at that time. I had suggested to her the same thing. I said, let the contentious issue remain, but let us keep on talking about other things. And let us build economic relations. Let us build cultural relations. We have in our policy given a shift towards Pakistan, people-to-people relationships. Some friends may not have approved of it. But whom does it benefit? When we give more visas are being given to the divided families. Mother is here, son is there, brother is here, sister is there. If they come and meet their family, does India gain or does India lose out of this? And most of these people come from Karachi. Why did Pakistan close down the consulate in Karachi? Primarily because they wanted to hinder the visas. At that time, we were issuing from Karachi alone 750 visas a day. They closed it down. We are now exerting our best to give as many as we can, but our number doesn't even now exceed 300 because we don't have manpower available. And they don't let more manpower come in. Sometime many speculations have been made as to what will happen in next couple of days or 3 days about India-Pakistan talks, etc. I would not like to comment on that because India has not been approached officially for any talks. India's position stands as it was. The letter which Prime Minister Deve Gowda wrote to Benazir Bhutto, to that response has not yet come. And that is where we stand committed. And I think whenever we have to talk, we'll talk on that basis, on official level, which has been snapped for some years now. Therefore, the thrust of the foreign policy that we are trying to pursue, if I may say broadly, is not reactive anymore. It is active. If we take initiatives, we have taken initiative regarding Bangladesh, major initiative. We have taken major initiative regarding Afghanistan, major initiative. We have taken initiative regarding CTBT, another major initiative. We have taken initiative rather ASEAN, and also to an extent and within a limited sphere, a new initiative regarding making our borders tranquil. Well, how tranquil they will be, that's still to be seen. Because at the moment we are not talking of borders, kindly, there should be no confusion about it. We are talking about line of actual control. Line of actual control is to be also spelled out. And General Saab has rightly asked me, where is the line of actual control? In this visit, it has now been agreed that when officials meet again, maps will be exchanged. Then there will be discussion on maps, whether their maps are correct or our maps are correct, and then some via media will be spelled out. So this is a general I wanted to say. Now if I wish to, and if you wish to, I can go point by point to various points which my friends have raised, if you have patience still, and the time still. But both my...
I think all those points are being covered now.
Thank you. May I thank you once again and thank my honorable friends who have shown so much patience to sit here so long and carry on this debate. I agree with Shivrajji that I think is very important for us that very frequently we discuss foreign affairs and security. This should not be left as a surplus time when we sit at 8:45 and discuss it. I think we should sit here when House is present because these are vital issues on which nation must take its view and nation must decide the policy through the parliament. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.